Anyway, silly intro. Then we can go.
All right, I'm gonna put down.
You don't
the
have
cat.
to put the cat down. You can keep the cat.
Well, she's gonna end up. I don't know. They're so hyper.
Fair. Hello, one and all, and welcome to another thrilling episode of Off the Dome. I'm your humble interviewer, Jordan Brennan. With me, as always, is our astonishing art director. Say hi, astonishing art director.
Hi, astonishing art director.
Allison, thank you so much. Someone recently was like, I feel like Jordan is becoming less and less intelligible in those intros, and I was like, yeah, you're not wrong. It is deteriorating, but you know, I think that's on brand for the silliness. Yeah.
Especially, you mean like the beginning part, right? Because that was the case. That's the case in the show too. I think Brennan goes a little faster every time.
Yeah.
To the point where we have competitions.
Yeah, that's very funny. Wait, you have behind the scenes competitions as to how fast he can go?
There was a couple of safety meetings where I think a couple other crew heads, not me, other crew heads tried to go see how fast they could also do it. So
it's fun and silly. You got to get in on that action. It's just a good time. Yeah, I was mentioning to you because there are cats running around for you, and I was mentioning that in my interview with Izzy, there were cats fighting under the door, and people really loved that. One of the cats opened the door at one point, which is mind blowing to me. But I had said to her, I was like, look, I'm really sorry. Cause I did the intro thing and I was like, you don't need to hear that. You married that. You don't need to hear a silly, repetitive nonsense. And I was like, I did it in the first interview and then it just stuck. And she was like, I think that's what happened with Brennan too. He just did a silly thing. And then everyone was like, that's it from now on. So.
Yeah, no, that makes, that's sort of the way it goes with any of these sorts of things. You find one thing that works, everyone kind of latches onto it, and then it just goes, and you're like, well, this is where we live now.
Yeah, this is where we live now. An excellent philosophy to have. Let's talk.
Yes.
Allison, how much art directing for cupcakes helped you mold a brick of cocaine?
Well,
white confectioner powder, I assume, is involved in both.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. Full disclosure, we rented those bricks of cocaine. So
wow, I didn't know that was a thing you could rent.
Yeah, a lot of the prop houses out here do a lot of really lovely, rentals. So unfortunately, no filling of cocaine bags, but a lot of painting for cupcakes. So
fair. Is that true across the board then for all the props? Did you make any of them, or is it all rentals?
Oh, we did. It's a good mix actually, okay. And anything that looks like old phones and police badges and severed fingers and things. Those are a little harder to come by. I mean, you can sometimes at Goodwill, but
yeah. Well, severed fingers, I hope not. But
I've not lifted my right hand yet.
That's fair. That was actually one of the, I just made a list of every prop that I can think of from the show, and I was like, do I just go one by one and be like, how did you do this? But severed finger is on my list of how do you make a severed finger?
I think so. The finger itself again is a rental. It looks. It's been a really long time since I've done any sort of casting and molding, but clearly someone made a mold and it's cast rubber, it's with a little bit of blood mixture, which is my specialty. But aside from that, there's a wide, LA is full of incredible prop houses. And just sometimes there are days where you're like, I don't have the time or the person to do this thing, and you have to just go out and find it. And so it's nice to be able to tap into that resource, especially in a season that is more prop centric, where we can do that sort of movie magic.
Yeah.
But there is quite a bit that is, made. The Pluton. I wrote it so many times.
I didn't write it down. Yes,
the green stuff I made.
I love that. All right. Then how do we make plutonium nitrate? What if I covered my mouth and I dubbed
plutonium
it in later?
hydroxyphenate. Yeah, adrenoxyl plutonium sulfate.
Ooh, I think you got it. I think that's it.
I got it. I think we got it. I'm sorry, folks. I don't have it in front of me right now. It is mostly, we bought a whole bunch of these little bottles that have the caps that you can crimp on, and there go the cats. I swear this thing is going to fall over in the middle of this interview. bought those, came up with
I so desperately want you to be like in the dome right now, and like there's a season happening behind you. It's gonna fall over. It's just gonna be like Brennan is back there and like freezes. That would be so good. Anyway,
this is just the backside of the dome. This is what it really
yeah,
looks like. It's
yeah,
a cheap screen from Amazon. No, that would be
and there are cats loose in the studio.
insane.
You bought
No,
bottles, and I interrupted.
that is totally okay. I want to say very early days when we were trying to figure out what this mystery drug, whatever it was going to be, someone, it might have been Brennan, it might have been Rick. Someone was like, that like super green hair gel with the little bubbles in it. That, but like more, like as pumped up as we can get it. And I was like, okay. So I went, digging around looking for super lime green hair gel and did a color mix, and we piped it into those bad boys. And I cranked out some labels, and there you have it. Mystery drug.
Turned out beautifully. Yeah, I actually I'm super curious about sort of those early meetings for this season specifically. I know there was a really short turnaround on this season in terms of how long you had to actually build, which is probably why there are some rentals in there. But yeah, and what were the early meetings of like, hey, we've got a new season and it's gonna be the wildest thing we've ever done.
So I actually kind of hopped on a little later in the process this time around. They had a lot of the meetings earlier on when I got a call from Rick saying, prop heavy season, really, shorter, crazy 80s, please watch Kung Fury. So I kind of missed out actually on a lot of those early, like throwing spaghetti at the wall sessions. But, when the prompt is as big as you can get and never stop, like, everything is fair game, right? So, you try a bunch of things, we pitch a bunch of ideas. I was prepped with a whole bunch of like lists of ideas of other props that we could use that feel correct for the genre of movie. I also made a whole bunch of templates of like paper props and things ready to go in case we needed them. But yeah, it seems like it was very quick and throw things around, and like they landed on such a really fantastic combination of an idea. So and you can feel the vibe in the room. It was like the best kind of chaos in there while we were filming.
Yeah, I mean, I talked to Carlos Luna before the season started, and we had talked a little bit about like what was coming up, and he had said, that it was like that when he builds out his like cast board or whatever, and he was building out this scene, he was like, what if it was just chaos, 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 chaos all around the table? And obviously Brennan couldn't have leaned any harder into the chaos, I don't think, if he tried.
I don't think so.
And
I don't think so.
Just absolute magic. So yeah, I'm assuming that translates into the art department of like, hey, it's going to be chaos this season, so get ready.
A little bit for sure. It was keeping us on our toes for sure. I basically, my job this season was sit in the back and be ready to go and pull and like add anything to any point that we needed. Like if they called for something, like let's quickly make a graphic, let's do this, let's do that. Like it was just go with the flow. Making things are working correctly. What else can we add? Those sorts of very, like, we were prepared as much as we could be, which, there's only so much you can be for anything that's live, but we did a really good job, I think, of prepping and making a list and all of the ideas that they all came up with for things that we wanted to do. And like, boy howdy, they did a good job.
Yeah, I mean, like, really amazing stuff. Like, I mean, I obviously we've talked about junior year, and obviously the projections in junior year were like next level, but this was the projections were so much more even interactive this year, of like the like bullet effects and obviously the explosions a million times over. But like, Iffy's character is gonna like burn rubber and it's gonna cause smoke, and like Brennan hits a button and there's smoke everywhere, and it's like, how is this happening? It feels magical. So like that had to be a monster list in terms of like, here's everything we need ready to go.
It really was. And you know, speaking to both Derek and Ruby also, when you talk about projections, I want to say Derek said this is one of the most, like, the most they've given Brennan, like, for the decks. Like, we had, like, pages and pages of projection decks. And it's great because when you have something that is, again, so heavily tropey, you know where to pull. You know you're going to end up, like, in an elevator in a shootout. You know you're going to end up at some sort of crazy factory. You know you're going to end up in a car chase, especially with Iffy's character. You've got to.
Yeah.
Like, there are some things that if we didn't have ready, it would just be like a gross mistaking of the concept. So
Yeah.
it's nice to be able to have something to very easily tap into that is the expectations, and then be able to deliver on those expectations.
Yeah. And I mean, also practical effects, smoke in the dome, how many safety meetings were there for smoke in the dome going into that?
I mean, you know, enough, the right amount. We've played around with. It's just we've had like haze. Well, we use haze for the mini shoots, I guess I should say. Sorry, you know, and so it's not anything we're like so unfamiliar with. It's just theatrical smoke, but you know, making sure that we're using the right stuff and making sure that it's safe for the cast, and making sure, especially Izzy, because you know she's very pregnant. So we were like making sure all of these things were in place and like figuring out. You know, I know Rick did a whole, when he was working on the drawings for the table. We're like looking at the table and going, okay, how do we take the unit for the hazer, the mini fogger, and like stick it in there and like tubing and winding it through. If you look under the table for this season, between that and the LEDs, it looks like it is rigged to explode. Very genuinely.
Very appropriate for the season. That's so funny. Yeah, it's also funny. Does that mean Brennan got a hole cut in the table before Abria did? I guess kind of. I mean,
Did
Drew,
we
I guess
cut
maybe
a
not
hole?
full hole, but like,
I think because of the way that the vents are steepled this season, they're
okay. All right. So Bria is still safe in terms
Yep.
of wanting her hole cut.
Yep.
That doesn't seem like a great way to phrase that.
And you know that as soon as that hole gets cut, we will all, well, not as soon as, but you understand.
Yes.
Oh yeah, it will be an interesting day, the day it finally happens.
Right. Yeah.
So, but yeah,
Yeah,
no, it was fun also trying to figure out and see, like, okay, because we all know, not we all, but like most of us knew all of what Brennan's toys are. And so being like, okay, is he going to do it this week? Is he going to do it this day? Like, when's he going to do it? Are you going to do it? Nope, not yet, not yet. And like waiting and seeing as he like slowly introduces things is also just fun for us.
Yeah.
To wait for the reactions.
Yeah,
so.
I would say when I say safety meetings, I don't mean that you weren't safe with it. Just like I know, like on film sets, and this is for the folks at home, of like literally, if there's like we're going to have a lit candle on set today, there's like a full meeting of like we have an open flame today. Like it doesn't even matter if it's like that. So I was expecting, you know, like there's going to be some meetings of like, all right, there's smoke out here. Like we need to be prepared for
So I think in order to not give away our hand to the cast, now that you're reminding me because it's been a while, to not give away our hand, at the beginning of the season we said these are all of the things that might possibly happen at any given moment to be prepared for. That way they knew, for again like safety reasons, in that way those things would be coming potentially or eventually, but not specifically when, because obviously that would give away all of the lovely little secrets, and we don't want to do that.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it's funny. I talked to Sky Smith recently, and we talked about like their job of like, okay, but just tell me what's going to happen, and everyone's like, you can't, and like they're like, but just tell me something. Like, what do you think is going to happen so that I can start making notes? That's got to be a particular challenge in terms of like, all right, we need everything ready on basically day one because it could happen at any point and we don't know when.
I mean, it's the same almost as the Vulture Dimension. Like, we didn't know when it was going to happen, so we had to have it ready to go, and we did. And you know, but like it is the biggest amount of like, how do you cover every expectation or every base and be as prepared as you can be, but still, you know, there's always something. You know, we had, for example, we had the cigarette box. We had the Bilson cigarette box.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't have cigarettes in it. So I went running out the block to the smoke shop down the street in the middle of shooting to run and grab some cigarettes. So we had them when they handed them in the box. That way they were there and ready to go. Or, Brennan will drop a name and we're like, okay, let's suddenly like make an ID card for Haldwell. It's things like that. Like you can only be so prepared. And that's, I mean, anyone who's worked in like theater knows that you can be as prepared as physically possible, but something will always inevitably happen. And it's about how you handle it and how you roll with the punches and make it do the thing in the moment. It's also like being a DM. It's the same thing. You can prepare all day, but if your crew doesn't want to go in that door, you got to find another way to get them there.
Beautifully said. Yeah, I love. Oh God, the Haldwell ID. I'm assuming up close, probably not like crystal clean, but from a distance looked great. It made me think of someone posted. I have no idea where I saw it. Someone posted like, "Here was my ID card from when I was like, let's say it was The Office. I don't think it was, but like, here was my ID card." And like they posted like a close up, and I was like, "Boy, that like the picture's askew," and like it very clearly was just like we cut out a picture and stuck it on there, and it's like because there would have never been a close up on the show, like it was always at a distance. But yeah, how much of that is there a lot of that you're relying on of like, okay, at least with this season, right? Like there's not going to be a mini shoot, so we know we're not going to have like close ups. We can maybe fudge because was it like 2 weeks you had it? Was it even 2 weeks turnaround for this?
From like finish, like start to finish in terms of filming or for like prep, you mean?
Yeah, prep. Yeah.
For prep, probably like around there. But because we did film less like per chunk of time, like day, sometimes we had a moment to breathe and be like, okay, I have 2 days to go out and find this thing or make this thing and get it approved. And so that was kind of nice. Like every now and then there are those pockets of time where you have the ability to do that, which is very helpful. Yeah. But I mean, this is sort of how I've always viewed anything that I've worked in television is you never know what the camera is going to zoom in on. Your DB could go rogue and they could suddenly zoom into like paint cans on a shelf. And you're like, well, if these aren't clear, if they're not, legally allowed to be seen, or if they're like really dirty, you never know what an editor is going to choose or see. And so you have to basically have it all be as ready as it can be. So, and we definitely did, I was there when we did the beauty shots of all of the props. So I also made sure that they looked really nice.
They turned out great. I should say.
Thank you.
And yeah, I hate to come back to it. When you're calling someone about a brick of cocaine, how do you phrase that to a prop house? I assume like you don't just say like, "Hey, do you guys have cocaine over there?"
Well, it was more of a like, hey, we're doing this sort of 80s action-y type sequence. Like, can I come and see all of your things? And then you kind of shop around a little bit going, and then eventually you can lead into, do you also happen to have, some handcuffs and a brick of cocaine? Like or like 3 of them just in case one of them busts. I was so afraid. They were throwing it early episodes and I was like, please don't. And like the DM screen it has all those like beautiful like layers and they're reaching and I'm like, please stop reaching over it. You're going to break everything. It's going to go everywhere. I'm going to have to like pay off the cost of this brick of cocaine that is now all over the table. Or like even it was the day we were just watching the episode where Iffy like busted the stress ball and I was like, I remember this. There were little yellow dots all over the dome. It was a mess. It was so frustrating. It was fine. Not actually that bad, everybody. But there's that moment of you're like, oh no, where did they go? Are they going to melt? Like, what if there's a problem? You just have to roll with the punches always. But I have asked for far weirder things at prop houses. I feel like every show there's always something weird. There's always a weird ask. I mean, I worked on the L Word for Jordan. Like, I've asked for some weird stuff.
That's fair. I've gotten to be in a prop house once when I worked in LA. I don't have any idea what we were actually looking for. I remember I got a desk out of the deal because I needed a desk, and they just had a
Mm.
ton of them. And I was like, but what if I also got a desk? It's not for the movie. And they're like, yeah, I don't care. And I was like, great. Can I have this cool old phone too?
Yeah.
It's just such like a weird treasure trove of nonsense.
It really is. It's like walking into the end of Raiders of the Lost Ark. It really,
Yeah,
or the end of Citizen Kane. There's just so much stuff in boxes, and you're like, when will you ever use any of this?
yeah,
And if you start going to some of the same ones like regularly and like looking through, you have these moments of like, I don't know when I'm ever going to use that, but man, I wish I could.
yeah.
It's like couches that are entirely covered in like sequins that are shaped like lips and things, and you're like, yeah, I don't know what that's gonna be for, but now I know it's here. One of these days I'm gonna get it on a set. Like, it's gonna
Yeah.
happen.
Yeah.
They're so
Gastronauts
fun.
season 2,
Yeah, there you
giant
go.
sequined lip couch. Yeah.
Perfect. But no,
Yeah.
it's they're fun. They're really fascinating, the amount of stuff and the amount of things that are period as well, which is nice.
Yeah.
And when you're looking for things that are so ingrained in the 80s, you want it to feel mostly correct. So
Yeah. Right. Yeah. I would say like I remember it has to be the first episode or no, I guess second episode because that's when we actually get into the props. Where like they get the brick and Brennan describes like the person who stabs his hand, and I was like, is Brennan about to like stab into this brick of cocaine
rips out a
on set?
butterfly
Just
knife.
like, yeah, just I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. Everything is so crazy. It could, but yeah, grateful that it never exploded on set,
Mhm.
and you had to deal with whatever was inside of that.
Yeah, and we definitely had some conversations where he was like, can we hide something in it? And I was like, we can hide something in almost everything else, just not that, please.
Yeah,
I was
yeah,
like, I don't like I feel like I should ask my players if hiding something in a powder would be the kind of unhinged level of DM, nonsense I would do. But it is a lot for on camera and for quite that large a brick.
yeah. This turns into Double Dare of just like, all right,
Oh boy.
somewhere in there is the winning chip. You got to dig through
Oh
the
my
cocaine to
god.
find it. Uh,
It's bigger on
yeah,
the inside.
yeah,
Yeah.
um, yeah. That was super fun. Obviously, like I mean, bullet casings probably not as difficult. Floppy disk also just in a prop house somewhere, or did you have to make that one?
eBay.
eBay, fair.
eBay.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, my parents. I actually asked my parents first because we have some stuff in my old house. I was like, do we actually have any like old blank? And they didn't, so we ended up having to, I think, go to eBay and find a couple different older things like that.
That's very fun. That's
Yeah,
yeah. That's super super fun. Um, Dynamite a rental?
Dynamite's a rental.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Probably could have faked that more easily, but sometimes when you're just like, or I could just rent it real fast. It's a
Yeah,
lot
I'm
easier
here
and it still looks
already.
pretty good.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Obviously, like you mentioned the DM screen, really, really cool effects. I talked to Kelsey Hunter recently about sort of that like smoke and rocks sort of being thrown off at the front of the
Yes.
DM screen. Obviously, going into the season, you had a really good idea of vibes overall, but how did you want the vibes of the season to get captured in that DM screen?
So Rick talks about how a lot of the time when you see anything like ads for the season, it's Brennan and the DM screen. Like it's the movie poster. It's the movie poster for the season. And all of these, 80s action movies have, like Die Hard, and it's, all like big and red and block letters on white and like actiony. And so we basically were like, how can we make the DM screen the poster for the movie or the season? And that's what it was. That was the goal. And thinking about these like silhouettes and like the city and having it grounded in LA was very exciting, and like how to suggest that without being too like fiddly. Yeah, so just kind of creating the I'm gonna call it the theme parkness of what that is, encapsulated in like one little diorama.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's so beautiful. Like that smoke effect at the front is so effective as well. Just to like add to like it's never stopped blowing up. There's got to be an explosion on the DM screen as well
Yep.
as a million other explosions.
Well, and also like coming off of we had just recently coming off of the Seacaster Manor airship battle, where Kelsey and Irene had done all of that beautiful felting on like the face and hands. We were like, well, we know tried and true method here. Like, let's let them do what they do best, and and showcase that in a way that will take the lights, it'll take the explosions, and it'll be really effective. I love the car careening off the side. I think it's just the right. It's so good.
Yeah, a lot of beautiful little touches there. Speaking, I mean, I guess little touches, but like progressive touches. Brennan's makeup this season. Oh boy. And there's one of the things that'll buy you some time. Brennan's got to get fully changed between episodes. Like it's not a Brennan has to switch between one of his 5 shirts. Brennan's got to sit down in the chair for a while. How much fun? I'm assuming that was obviously off on like makeup department. How much fun was that just to be on set for? Of like, oh, now it's like blood, shirt ripped, burn, like all this stuff is getting added up.
For sure. It's always fun because, every day we'd walk in and do a different safety meeting and be like, okay, like how far are we progressing today? And you hit a point where you're like, how do you get more beat up than this? I don't know. Okay. Well, he does. So that was definitely also fun. And it's really fun. I think that this season, and I believe Carlos has said the same thing, this season is very cohesive. I think everybody is sort of playing at the same like levels between the cast, but also like the art and the animations, the storyboarding, everything, all the little touches of this season feel like everybody has gone up to that same level. So having Brennan also embrace that and want to, be part of the bit in that way is very satisfying, both as, someone working with him and also a viewer.
I've seen a few people have said to me, they're like, is the final episode just going to be a skeleton and Brennan is doing voiceover off screen? Like how does he continue? You mentioned those storyboards. They're so stunning. At what point did you know like storyboards that was going to be a thing for this season? Was that in pre? Was that like post? How did those come about?
They definitely, I think, came about in post. I at that point had, not really been part of the conversations, but I think I want to say like the day before the trailer dropped, I think I was in a conversation with Carlos and he was like, oh yeah, we like got these, like schematic or not storyboards and like animatics. And I was like, oh, that's so smart. That's so smart. It's perfect. And it really does a lot to add to the season, in a season that doesn't have minis. It's fun because people like the action. They like seeing all of those things, and it's fun getting to like have, the theater of the mind actually like visualized in that way, in a way that also the show never has really done before.
It was a really, really cool like addition to the show. Obviously, we have another stunning season of Kate May art for all of the characters, but then like on top of that, those really cool storyboards and the fact that they do feel like so rough and like in progress, it just makes it feel even more fun. Like, oh, we're living this story as it is happening, because like we're seeing like a storyboard in progress kind of thing.
There are definitely some moments while we were shooting. I would come off of an episode and be like, I cannot wait to see the art of this moment. Like, it's going to be ridiculous. And then just knowing that we also had like actual art, I was like, oh, that's even better. It's one thing imagining Greg Stocks like flying up into outer space. It's another thing getting to see it. And you're like, yes.
It's very good.
Very good.
I will say, like, speaking of the trailer and Brennan's costumes, were you shocked that people were so good at figuring out who was reflected in Brennan's glasses in like 2 frames of a little teaser trailer?
I feel like at this point I'm not shocked by anything. Given how I know our fan base and how everything is going, I am very impressed and a little bit scared, mostly. But no, I just remember like pulling that up that day and being like, wow, they're really going hard. Good for you. Like, very impressive.
Yeah, like people got a lot of the cast right, which was wild
Yeah.
to sort of watch, like break down. I had sent this message to Iffy, and I think I've mentioned it somewhere on one of these interviews that like someone was like, "Those are Iffy's shoulders," and I was like, "Incredible! I'm absolutely sending him that."
Oh
Of
yeah.
just like a pixel tall reflection in
Wow.
aviators. Amazing.
It's a wild.
Yeah,
um
yeah. When I talked to Carlos, because when I talked to Carlos, that it was right before the season started, so we knew everything that was like everyone in it, and obviously, and
mhm.
he was like, I am so careful on those kinds of things of like trying to make sure we don't give things away. It's like it never occurred to me that people would pause the reflection in his glasses to see who was across from him.
Well, now
It's
we
like
know.
now you know. If the Dimension 20 fans are rabid.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
uh, yeah. Super fun though, like to get that like nonsense. I will say, like, obviously, like a lot of things this season, big, like we talked about the DM screen, some of the props that you had to build, those kinds of things, and obviously not necessarily even this season, but also like junior year, other seasons that you've worked on. Those big ones, those big things that you know you're going to have to get done. Is that a like we're starting that day one of prep, or is that a we're going to put that off for a bit and we're going to like build some steam and then tackle once we've like moved into like we've gotten into the headspace of what we need to do?
Yeah, so a lot of the time, it's really, yeah, it's about figuring out priorities. What do you think is going to take the most amount of time or the most amount of work? How long will it take to make up these graphics or track down a weird prop or make sure that it rigs the right way? And we start the season out usually by kind of making those timelines. We make documents where we like figure out like what we're gonna need and like run things by. There are always surprises. There are always things that suddenly break. There are always, sudden trips out to a Goodwill to pick something up. Like it happens. Um, so it really depends, and it depends on like if it's something that needs a long time. Can it be done over the course throughout? Like, can maybe one person handle this one task over here and like really like see it through to completion? This season, at least, thankfully, there were a lot of things that were kind of one and dones. You find a thing, you make it, you tweak it. There's one prop that was a little bit of a struggle bus for me figuring out how to make it work. We've not seen it yet.
Ooh,
Um, where we had a little hiccup. And it took a little bit longer than expected and worked beautifully by the time we got it working appropriately. But those sorts of things, if they're large or require more adjusting or like fine tuning, we try to give ourselves more time if we can to make sure
yeah,
that they're working appropriately, to make sure, we tested the vents very early on to see how much smoke and like how long it would go and like does it clear and like what do we need to do, and that kind of thing. And the good thing is between a number of us, we all have a lot of there's a lot of like theatrical and like TV experience. So Rick can look at something and know how long it'll take him to wire it, give or take some. And there's a lot of things that I know, okay, if I like color match this and we like shake it up and we make sure it settles appropriately, or how long it makes to make an ID card or print out some stuff. Like there are some things that we're getting very good at knowing how long I think will take. It can vary.
yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
fair, right?
Yeah.
And also understandable. I have been thinking about like I don't when we talked during junior year. I don't think the last stand had happened yet. The last standard, whatever that Coliseum
No,
battle,
it had
uh,
not. We had just
and
gotten through Thistle Spring.
yeah, just like I think we may have maybe talked about it during the roundtable, but the biggest kudos to you for those practical tests that were handed out. 1,000 chef's kisses.
Thank you. Uh,
So like the anxiety of just seeing them. Um,
I was a very standardized test child, so I was very familiar with them and I've previously made like PSAT packets and stuff for other TV shows. So I was like, yes, good, in my wheelhouse. And we had a lot of fun because I even did some research on the testing that, happens over in the UK so I can make sure Siobhan also
mhm.
felt appropriately attacked by the exam questions and the formatting. So Those were quite a bit of fun. And I like finding something that I can like really research and be like, this is what this looks like. And when you're handed it, you're like, wait, hang on. That's just always so much fun.
Yeah.
We had a couple other, there was a while where we were trying to do some other paper props for the season. Like I did some dossiers and some other like crime photos and like evidence type stuff that didn't make it. We didn't use it. But so like trying to find that right like sweet spot of this looks like the real thing, how on earth is always been a joy of mine. I think it's partially why I really like doing props in the first place. It's like, how do you take something fake and make it look like the thing without it being the thing is always a lot of fun.
Yeah. Oh man, so good. Yeah. We had gotten through Thistle Spring, which means we'd gotten through the Vulture Dimension. I think that was what you wanted to wait for when we had reached out originally. But yeah, boy, the second half, or however many episodes were left after that, just astonishing. Kudos to you for just an absolute killer season. The final battle, obviously incredible, cutting up the original gym to like make it so that Brennan can move it any direction. There's lava underneath.
Oh yeah.
But, yeah, that I am so in love with that last stand fight. I think because the Coliseum was fun. There were so many weird little monsters that got thrown in. Obviously, Jesse's incredible work on the like desks, and of course, like the Arthur Eggfort audience of Kate May's art.
Yeah.
It's just everything came together so beautifully, including obviously that prop. Do you have a favorite fight now? Now that junior year is fully out, do you have a favorite fight, favorite set from that season?
Favorite? Oh, okay. I think
they can be
so. I
different
really
answers.
like The Last Stand as like a battle specifically because they really just destroyed it. They really killed it. It was such a showcase of them as players using every trick in the book and every tool in their toolkit to the best of their abilities, and just they wiped the floor with that fight. We were all very impressed, and it was a lot of fun too. Like you said, like we don't there's so many wacky and crazy combinations of things. Just throwing out some good old classic D&D monsters, so fun putting together that list of what we could possibly like have them, and then the weird things like the shrimp dragon, for example. Always so fun. So from like as a player, like that was just so fun to watch them really kill it. I think that my favorite set, it might be the mall, just because it is such a like precise, specific, like beautiful piece that took a lot of work and is like so fiddly and had so many little touches and pieces. But like with the way that the like lights glowed as it went through, just the layers, and it just looked so stunning. It was unlike anything I think we've done, and so that was really exciting, I think.
Yeah, the mall. I mean, they're all great. The mall. Yeah, I really love the mall. It also had another like great Kate May visual wraparound.
Yeah.
I guess they all did, but also like obviously you get puns in the mall, and that's the most fun.
Yeah. And again, it's that weird thing where you're like, "This is D&D. Let's go to the mall." Like what?
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's I think that fun contrast of taking a very mundane like place and making it magical is part of it too. But yeah. So
obviously, like you got brought on for junior year, and obviously have stuck around, which is great. We love it. What were sort of like big differences between going from junior year to Never Stop Blowing Up, other than obviously like no minis this time? But like, what was sort of that? What was that transition like of like, oh, this is a very different season?
For sure. I got to be a lot more hands-on, I think, with Never Stop Blowing Up, which is a lot of fun. Doing props, is a thing that I love doing, and graphics. So getting to actually be there and be part of that and being on call was very exciting. It's a little bit of a smaller lift, like you said, and there's less like organization in terms of like just the department in general, really. And I think that the overall thing was that we were really just rolling with the punches a lot more. It was sort of not less preparation, like percentage wise, but less preparation of just like, again, pure lift. Like you said, there's not miniatures. It's more letting them just kind of like play. On my end, at least, that was a lot of the big difference there. This season, I also did get to manage their abilities, though. So this was my first time really like messing about their character sheets.
Yeah.
Of which there were many. All of the buy-ins, all of the sticker upgrades that they get when they go shopping during the adventuring parties. I'm off stage like printing out labels and like adding them to their sheets. So that was a lot of fun, like tracking them with Sky, and making sure that it was all correct consistently throughout.
That's super fun. Yeah, so you were obviously like the turbo tokens intentionally blood like
yes.
to droplets. Great.
Absolutely.
Yeah. What was it? What was it? Yeah. How was it that I guess then backstage being like, okay, if he gets to be DM now, or like obviously like you didn't know at the time when they bought it, but like like that level of, oh man, this like like I talked to Carlos about it, of like we made a system that is designed to be broken, and like obviously we're 2 episodes left. Like is tonight 9?
Today's 9, yeah.
Yeah. So like we are at the it should be broken stages of things, and boy is it. What was that like then backstage of like, okay, they're choosing the wildest things imaginable. I got to get this ready. Who knows what it's going to mean?
Again, at this point, unsurprising, really. But that's what makes it all the more fun. Yeah, really, it was just about like making sure that everybody had all the right information and they knew what all of those were, because Brennan is reading them out. They have sheets that explain all their abilities, but it's a lot of abilities. They all have, at this point, I think like over a dozen abilities each, probably more. And so making sure that this also came a little bit during junior year too, which I know Sky was really on top of. It's just when you have that much stuff, when you have that many abilities and like ways you can do things, like being able to be on top of it and say like, okay, I know I can do this, but then, oh wait, if we're in this situation, we can like do this together and that makes it better. And then everyone doubles their turbo tokens and then we explode the moon, like whatever it is. They don't do that. That is not a spoiler.
You heard it here,
No.
You heard it here first, folks. The big scoop. Finale of Never Stop Blowing Up, they explode the moon.
No. But I've been watching too much Gurren Lagann. Just letting them like play. Letting them play and do it and rolling with it and making sure that we let them and set them up in the best possible way.
Like that's got to be difficult. Of like they have so many abilities, and some obviously a range of experience in terms of like at the table in terms of how much like actual plays they have done. How do you go about being like, okay, here's your 50 abilities that you can do? I've tried to make them into one sheet or whatever. I mean, how big is that document at that point?
Large. On my end, it's quite large, but because there's 6 of them, and at some point you're like, well, they're all going to take skilled in something, and there's 9. How many abilities? I can't remember now. So just like being prepared for them to have like the things to add and upgrade, and just trying to make it as digestible as possible. There's only so much time that they have to really like sit and like learn and like figure out like, okay, like if I take this, and like they take their stuff home and they know what they're doing, and they're in communication with Brennan, obviously, but it is, you want to make sure that I am giving, or we are giving them the information that Brennan is giving them in the easiest, most digestible way. I don't want anyone to hiccup at the table because I misspelled something. That's my worst case scenario. So, it's really just being thorough in that way.
Yeah, I mean, look, as far as I know, no one has a hiccup at the table. Everything seems to go pretty smoothly. I'm sure people forgot some abilities, but that happens in any game.
Oh, exactly.
Yeah,
for sure. But the idea obviously is how can we make it as smooth as possible?
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. God, it's just been. I was going to say it's been such a smooth season. That probably isn't the right word to describe it because it is absolute madness. But it nothing at no point does it ever feel like things are broken in the wrong way. They're broken in the right way.
Exactly. No, I agree.
Yeah.
I do think that it is a really it's the right players playing the right characters in the right like tone. In that way, it felt very smooth. Like when we were backstage, it's like natural and like there was nothing like difficult in that way, I think.
Yeah. My son is having a bad time, in case you
Oh.
can hear that. But speaking of people in the house, is that you have cats now?
I do now have cats.
I think I've seen at least one during the interview pop around somewhere in there.
I think they're upstairs now.
That's fair. What
Yeah.
are the cats' names? What are the new additions?
The cats are named Freya and Calypso.
Okay.
We are great lovers of mythology in this household. They are my first cats. I grew up with dogs. So it's very exciting to have our two little baby girls. You know, it's been really exciting. It was very hard the first time I had to leave to go to work. After we had, adopted them, I was like, I'm only leaving you for 8 hours, but I'm still sad about it. No, and it's been very good. Actually, quite a lot of people, a great deal of the art department are all cat parents. So when we were talking about adopting, I was poking people, being like, "What should I get? What do I need? What do I need to know? Tell me your secrets." And so that has been very, very helpful and very good. So it's been a joy.
Wonderful. Oh, that's such good news to hear. I love that so much. Obviously, look, the big news that I got out of Sky was that we have an Abria season coming, which is very exciting. They were cleared to tell me that, so that was not like a thing that I like got out of them and it was an accident. They got the okay to tell me that an Abria season is coming. Without, I'm not going to ask you any specifics, obviously, but we have talked about before. Abria and Brennan are in an arms race. Do you think the arms race continues? Like, did
Yes.
Abria come in?
Oh.
Okay, great.
Oh, Jordan. You have no idea.
I can't wait.
There are yes.
Great. Perfect. Yeah,
we continue to go hard.
Yeah. I mean, I would expect nothing else.
Yeah.
I'm so excited for whatever nonsense is coming up next. Alison, if there is some universe where someone doesn't follow you already on Instagram or various other social medias, where can they find you?
Yeah, sure. I am at Poetical Pirate, both on Instagram and on Twitter, X, whatever we're calling it nowadays. Yeah, that's where I am. You can see my kitties and potentially some work-related stuff too.
Potentially work, but the cats are more important. That's gonna drive more engagement anyway. Any other big things coming up that you need to like tell us about? And it's fine if the answer is no. I didn't ask you beforehand. Usually, I remember to ask people if there's something they want to plug specifically.
Not that I can really think of. I am gonna try to be at LA Comic-Con.
Hey.
I know Kate May is going to be there, so
will that be the first time that you meet Kate May in person?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I got to meet Kate at Gen Con, and I was like, and I don't know why I thought they were in the Pacific Northwest. They are not. And I was like, are you? They're like, yeah, I'm going to be in LA. And like, demand that I get to go to the Dome because like I've never been there and I've never gotten. I'm like, yeah, no, that seems fair.
Very fair.
Yeah. Yeah. Wonderful. LA Comic-Con. Are you going to be like Chapel Roan? Don't come up and ask for pictures. Don't talk to me. Which is, by the way, super fair. That is not a dig at Chapel Roan.
No, for sure. If you recognize me and come up to me and talk to me, I will be mostly just very impressed. That's okay. Because I will
promise you it's gonna happen.
Oh boy. Yeah. I've only ever been to like GDC, which is a very different vibe. So this will be my first con, really.
Yeah. People are gonna know who you are. It's
when is it October? Yeah.
I have no idea, but yeah. Look, as we've covered, Dimension 20 fans, absolute lunatics. So, anyway, thank you so much. This has been so delightful. We must talk soon because I'm going to try and do the production round table for Never Stop Blowing Up, as I am wont to do. But yeah, this has been amazing. I'm going to go find out why my son is so upset. And as always, I don't know how to end an interview, so I'm just going to hit stop recording.
All right.